Hi and welcome to my first Sims build video. I'm so glad you're here. So let's get right into it. Today we're building a dark, leafy, whimsical home for a mischievous, deviant fairy to move into. I don't know about the rest of you, but I am so excited about the new Enchanted by Nature pack. I have been waiting to play with fairies for so long, so I just couldn't wait any longer. I thought, well, the pack doesn't come out for a few more days, but I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to see if I can create the same effect with the packs I have. I'm going to build this home on the Cordelia's Secret Cottage lot, which is in the world of Henford-on-Bagley, and it is honestly just a stunning lot. You got this beautiful waterfall coming down the side. You got these little picnic spaces your Sims can go and lunch at. Beautiful foresty location. It really is stunning, and what a view. So I really wanted to lean into the enchanted cottage vibes. I'm pulling a little bit on a few influences here, maybe Hansel and Gretel house. I'll go into that more in a minute. Little Crooked House from that nursery rhyme, always find that so scary. And I really wanted to lean into the idea that this little cottage is truly, quite literally, enchanted by nature. I want to cover it in so many plants and ivy and moss, creepy vines, so it feels like it's actually at one with nature, like it's springing from the soil almost like the plants do. It is so intertwined with nature. It's like, where does nature stop and the cottage begins? Here I am just kind of figuring out the basic shape. One thing I knew for certain is that I wanted there to be turrets and turrets and turrets, because I love the idea of these little fairies just flying up to the top and peeking out, seeing who's outside. Is there anyone I can suck the life force from today? I just thought that that was really whimsical and fun. So I'm applying 2 turrets to our house, as you can see. Now, one thing I always lean towards when I'm doing Sims build is symmetry. I don't know why. It's just something about that just really speaks to me, the visual appeal of it. I kind of like the structure and order of that. But I did not want any of that in this Sims build. I wanted it to be really higgledy-piggledy. So a little bit all over the place, a little bit unpredictable, and a little bit random almost. So I did one turret further forward, more embedded, drawn into the house, and then another one that kind of leans out at the back, and it's quite a lot taller. It's another floor taller. And I think that works really well. It gives it this lovely crooked house vibe that I was going for. And it also allowed me to do a little upstairs as well. So, I mean, it's not a big house, so a little bit of extra space is gonna be nice here. The other thing I really knew that I wanted to do, apart from just the turrets, was a chimney. Little cottage in the forest, it just screams big fireplace, chimney puffing with smoke. So you'll see here, I've gone into the back and I'm trying to decide how I want to do the chimney. As I mentioned before, I love the symmetry. I started off with a very symmetrical, wide chimney, but you know what? That was kind of screaming modern American farmhouse to me, you know, that Chip and Joanna Gaines kind of vibe, with it going straight down the middle. So I deleted that. We'll come back to it later and I'll do something a little bit more unstructured and off to the side. Now, one of the problems I had with this build when I decided I wanted to do turrets was I really wanted to stay away from castle vibes. Not that a magical fairy castle isn't wonderful, but I just knew that wasn't really the vibes I wanted to go here. I wanted to stay in the world of cottagecore. So the house is going to be made of wood. It's going to have a little thatched roof, which just screams nature to me. It's just very natural and organic, and I love that. One of my favorite things about this house, and I don't really even know if you can see very well, but it's just something that really pleased me, was the way I did this little bump out to the right. I actually made the second floor if you're in America, or the first floor if you're in the UK. I made that slightly overhang the ground floor or the first floor. I don't know if I mentioned I'm a Brit who lives in America, so I often feel the need to explain things in 2 different ways. But essentially, that second floor overhangs the ground floor. I'm confusing myself. But the inspiration of this was the Shambles in the city of York in England. And if you're not familiar, the Shambles is an historical street where the houses do exactly this. The second floor will overhang the lower floor. And the reason they did that originally was to create a larger floor plan, because there wasn't an awful lot of space. So they would build a slightly larger second floor to give themselves just a little bit more room, just stealing a little bit of room back. And it's just giving crooked house vibes so well. Now, I know our fairy, she has no need to claw back space in such a way. She has a beautiful big lot. She could easily just lob an extension on the back and be done. But it just gave the right vibes. Crooked house vibes to the max. Now you can see I'm just going in and I'm just trying to figure out the windows. One problem I had, if I'm being completely honest, is that I went for the medium height walls. And the reason I did this is because I wanted the house to be really tall and skinny, almost like a plant or a vine just growing out of the earth and reaching upwards, just that upward energy, shall we say. That's why I did these medium height walls. And I know that might be a controversial choice because when you think of cozy cottage, you think of the low ceilings and everything being really snug. And also, as I'm sure a lot of you may know, a lot of the cute cottagecore windows from the cottage living pack are designed for the shorter wall height. So the way I got around this, and let me know what you think, I decided I was going to do multiple layers of small cottagey windows. So it almost felt like the fairies had this multi-layered house, multi-leveled house, almost kind of like elves in Lord of the Rings, if that makes sense. There's a lot of staircases and a lot of different levels, that kind of thing. Of course, when you go inside, the illusion is broken because we do only have 3 floors. But what you'll see I do later is I work with platforms a little bit to kind of just give a nod to this idea of higgledy-piggledy multi-leveled housing. I personally really like it. I think it's super fun and it creates these cozy little areas for our fairy girl. Now, I did make sure that I used all 3 in-game levels, all 3 levels, because I don't know about you, but it really bothers me when there's unused space. I think I watch too many tiny living shows. You know, those ones on Hulu where people downsize and they have to make use of every little corner, every little space is completely utilized to the max. So it really bothers me when I do a build and I can't find a way to use all the space. So I do use every level of that big turret there. It's quite challenging to think of what to do in those tiny, weird shaped rooms, but I personally think it came out quite well. Please let me know what you think if you agree. Also, I'd love to know, are you excited about the new pack? If so, what are you most excited about? What are you most looking forward to? Is it the fairies or is it one of the other features? Because there are other things that we can do. It's a full expansion pack. My understanding is that you can live off the land completely. Your Sims can sleep and bathe in the big outdoors. They don't even need a bed anymore. Or they can learn the apothecary skill, which is a bit like the doctor skill, and get to work. Do you plan to buy this pack? And if so, what are you most excited about? So now you can see I'm going in and I'm trying to figure out my precious chimney, which was so important to me. It made sense for that fireplace to be slightly off just with the placement of the ladder that I did there. And the ladder kind of had to be there. Maybe it didn't have to be there, but it kind of made sense to be there because then we can get a little bedroom and a little bathroom on that first floor. Now this house, no staircases. It's just not big enough really, I don't think, in my opinion, for a staircase. So I've done ladders, which is maybe a little bit unconventional, but I thought it was really fun, a little bit more whimsical perhaps than your straightforward staircase. So I put the chimney off to the side here and oh my, I'll show you at the end. When the smoke comes out of the chimney in this little cottage, it just made me beyond happy. It looked so good. Now, one idea that I had was maybe I could size up a few trees. I quite like the idea of the scale of it, like large trees would make the house look smaller and kind of fairy-like. But the trouble with sizing them up is sometimes they just don't look that good. You know, they just aren't designed to be that big. And it was a bit of a compromise. So I didn't end up doing that in the end. Although I did like the idea of a tall tree. I did. So you'll see what I found later on. Now in this build, I will say I did incorporate 2 things from the new base game update. And I was so lucky with the timing on this, you guys. I was so lucky because it just worked out so perfectly that we can now place plants on the roof just for this idea that nature just can't be contained. It's literally bursting out from the house. It could not have worked out better. So I did incorporate some flowers on the roof. Those will come a bit later because the patch update, and at the time I was building, the patch update hadn't actually come out yet. So that'll come a bit later on in the video. And also, it might surprise you to know, I did also find a place to incorporate the new glass wallpaper. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we now have glass wallpaper. It's not a window, but it does appear like a window. And it's a bit like how, you know, we got that update where we can now do glass roofs. This is very similar, and the designs, a lot of the designs match as well. So if you wanted to do a fancy conservatory or greenhouse, you could get them to match up if you so desire, which I think is quite cool. I don't know about you, but one thing I really love about this house is those 2 little windows, those little circular windows look just like eyes. And the door kind of looks like a mouth. Usually that would really bother me if the front of my house looked like a face. I'd be like, oh my God, no, I have to change it. But it works so well here because it's almost like the house is watching you. Like it's enchanted and it's got these little eyes and it's looking for you as you go past. And maybe the house has some magical power. Those eyes kind of draw you in. So I really love these little windows. I thought it was so much fun. Such a fun idea that the house itself had a personality and desires and a will of its own almost. So let me know what you think about that as well. Do you love it? Do you hate it? I am not going to be offended because I know that everyone has their own opinions, and I think it's really interesting to hear how two people can respond really differently to the same thing. I just think that's so fascinating. So do let me know what you think. I do love the wisteria vines though. I think those are the wisteria vines. I'm not very good with flowers, but I do love those, especially how I placed them at the back of the house around the chimney. I know, I'm obsessed with this chimney, but I just think that looks so good. I kind of sized them down, and the purple wisteria, they almost look like little fairy lights, you know, they're almost glowing, which I think is really nice, and they're hanging onto these vines. I just think it's really gorgeous. I was able to place them around the chimney and really incorporate them into the build, which is what I was going for. So as I say, this is my first video on my new channel, SimsBuildsChill. If you're here, thank you so much for taking a look. I really appreciate it. If you enjoy this today, I would absolutely love it if you give me a like and maybe hit subscribe. That would just mean the absolute world to me, and it would really help my channel as well. Now, this is the moment it really started coming together for me, I think. I found these super tall trees in debug, which, as I mentioned, is something I really wanted, something to give a sense of scale, to make the house look smaller. So I found these really tall trees, and there's just an eerie beauty about them, don't you think? There's something kind of enchanted about them, and I kind of liked, I know they don't look like any other trees in this area, but I kind of liked the idea that maybe the trees closest to the house were being infected or affected by the spell. The spell that's over the house is quite literally affecting the trees and making them grow into this long, skinny, slightly creepy shape. I just really love that. The nature is affecting the house and the house is affecting the nature. Then I found this log. That's the sunken log that you can put in the lake, and it's super fun because you can allow turtles to bask on it. These little turtles come up and they just kind of sit in the sun and have a wonderful time. But that was like, of course, this house needs a lake. Of course it needs a lake. Why didn't I put that together before? Every creepy enchanted forest house needs a lake, right? So I put a little lake right here at the back. It seemed like a good space between the two trees. And when I say I had the best time making this lake, I don't know about you, but when I'm doing something in The Sims, which is kind of repetitive almost, I suppose, like placing down these reeds, placing down these rocks, it just makes me so relaxed. It's almost like a meditative process. And I just had a really lovely time making this creepy little lake with this swampy water. And it's really nice that the Sims can play in here and they can try and catch frogs. And when the new pack comes out, if you do get it, I understand that they'll be able to actually bathe in the water. So I'm wondering whether they might be able to bathe in this lake as well. I don't know if that's something that my fairy sim would enjoy or not, but time will tell, I'm sure. I've been just absorbing everything I can about this new pack to kind of create the idea of this character and what she could be. As I mentioned, this is a home for a dark, malevolent, slightly sinister fairy character. My understanding is that fairies are going to have magical powers and they're going to be able to affect other Sims in really fun and interesting ways. One thing they can do is they can affect relationships. They can affect your Sim's luck. Sims can be lucky and unlucky, and fairies can manipulate this. They're also going to be able to age Sims up and maybe apply or remove ailments. Now, in order to do this, fairies are going to need to keep charged, kind of like a battery. But our fairies are not going to have hunger and bladder needs, I believe. Our fairies are going to have an emotional force need. And to keep this filled, one thing that they can do is absorb the emotions of other Sims. They are literally emotional vampires. I don't know if you've ever seen that series, What We Do in the Shadows. There is a character on that show called Colin Robinson, and he is quite literally an emotional vampire. So I imagine our fairies as a kind of whimsical version of Colin Robinson. I don't know why, that just makes me laugh so much. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'm sorry, I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but this is how I imagine our fairies. So my idea, my little storytelling thing for this house is that it's a creepy cottage in the forest. And normally human Sims would be like, oh no, that is one creepy cottage. I am not going anywhere near it. But there's a spell on the cottage, which means that it's covered in these beautiful flowers and plants and all these wonderful things that are there to tempt human Sims who might just be out for a nice walk, really. They aren't doing nothing, they're just minding their own business, but they might get sucked into this lot by this beautiful landscape that I'm going to try and apply onto and around this cottage. I'm also going to add a few little fun touches around the house and lot as well that kind of lean into this idea that she's trying to tempt human Sims to the house. One problem I always have with lakes in The Sims, not just lakes in general, sim lakes, they kind of go a bit pointy. Does that make sense? Like, I find it really hard, even when I've got the circle terrain tool going, I find it really hard to get nice, smooth edges on the lake. I don't know if you find that or if you found a way around it and you have any tips or advice for me. I'm very open to suggestions. I just find it hard to get these nice, smooth, natural looking edges. I just decide to keep it as it is and kind of disguise it with the reeds and the moss, the plant life, the plant ecosystem. I just try and disguise it with all of that. I think that works well. You know, I think that looks very natural. But yeah, it would be nice to have not such pointy lakes in The Sims. That would be wonderful. So it's around this time, my time, real time as I'm playing the game, that the base game updated and we got the ability to add certain plants, not all plants, but certain plants will now snap to the roof. Naturally, you don't have to mess around with different things. Apparently, that's the idea, is that it would make putting plants on roofs a lot easier. So here's me as I start to play around with this. I found these wonderful blue and purple flowers. And the nice thing about the blue flowers in The Sims is that they kind of almost look like they're glowing. They naturally look like they are giving off, I'm under a spell, you know, those kind of vibes. So I thought, oh, this is the perfect color scheme. You can see down below, I kind of put a few yellow and white flowers, and I love those. I think they're gorgeous, but they're almost too cheery and happy almost a bit too jolly for this house. I wanted it to be a bit more kind of eerie and sinister, but still beautiful enough to entice Sims in. And I think the blue and purple, they are so much more this fairy Sims vibes. I think these would be her colors. If I'm honest, I might be a little biased because I think these are my colors in real life as well. I love this color scheme, but I think it works really, really well. And the lovely thing is we have a lot of things in this kind of shiny blue color. We have a lot of plants that kind of match this, so it made it really nice and easy to build the garden around the house. It does get a little bit trickier when you're placing plants on the left side there as we're looking at it. It was a lot harder, I think, because I have more going on the roof. It's easier when you have a large large piece of roof to work with. This did cause me some problems. I had to lower the plants and put them in place. But then what happens is, you'll see as I go around, they kind of disappear and then reappear again. I don't know if that would really bother you. I was trying to tell myself the story that maybe it's because this garden's under a spell. It's like you look and you look away and you look back and something changes. That's what I was trying to tell myself because I couldn't figure out how to stop it from doing that. I know that might be a little bit annoying, especially in a build that isn't supposed to be enchanted. The other problem I had, a little bit later on, you'll see a lot of the plants just disappear. They just go. I'm not sure if that's something I did that caused that to happen or if that's just a glitch that they need to iron out. I'm not too sure. But I did have to go back in later and redo some of the roof plants. So I'm quite pleased with how it looked in the end. I think it's giving extra. And I know for some of you it might be a little bit too much. But honestly, if there's any time to go big or go home with something like this, it's in the Enchanted Fairy Cottage, isn't it? This is the time to do it if we're going to do it. So I went for it, as you can see. And I had a really lovely time decorating the top of the house, almost as much as I did decorating the actual garden. So you'll see now I've deleted all the yellow and the white and those wildflowers. I know, very sad. They were beautiful, but I think it was worth it because I am just obsessed with how this looked. I also realized, as you can see, that you can place the plants on the turrets, and I was just obsessed with this. It looks so much like nature is just uncontainable, bursting through the top of the house. I loved it. I am doing a bit of alt placing here, and I do have move objects on. I'm not sure if that makes a difference, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm just alt placing the plants where I think they look most natural, and then I'm using the 9 and the 0 to move them up and move them down. And you can see I actually kept some of the lavender quite low because I wanted it to be like sprogs, like sprouts, like little bits sticking out willy-nilly all over the place. So yeah, I'm sorry if that looks like maybe it's clipping a little bit to you, but that was my intention. I just wanted like a little bit here, a little bit there at the bottom, and then full on lavender exploding from the roof from the top. I went through and I tried to find anything that kind of matched in color or matched in vibes. So we actually have a lot of things that give creepy enchanted vibes with this blue. I found these really perfect alien mushrooms, which I know she's not an alien, but could it be any better? I really think it works so well. And then I did also size up some of the plants again to kind of give that scale that the house is smaller than it is. I don't know if that makes sense, but just to, yeah, kind of match the trees and match the height of everything, I made some of the plants bigger. Lily. I'm sorry, that's one of my dogs. It's actually very rare that they're this quiet for this long, so we would definitely do a little barking fit. I have 2 toy poodles that kind of look like this. I loved putting the vines around the turrets. I absolutely loved it. It's almost a little bit Rapunzel-ish. Like maybe she doesn't have long hair, so Prince Charming has to climb up the ivy around the side or something. I don't know. So what I've done here is I've just created a nice little meandering path around the outside of the house between the blooms where our fairy sim can relax after a hard day of causing mischief and being a general nuisance to other sims. I put a little bench down somewhere she can just chill and be in amongst the flowers. And guys, how perfect is the wishing well for this garden? If you haven't seen the wishing well before or you've never used it, it's from the Romantic Garden pack, I believe, and it's quite good because there is a little bit of gameplay tied to it. I say a little bit, there's actually quite good gameplay tied to it. Your sims can wish for things in the wishing well. So for example, they could wish for love or wish for happiness or wish for a child. And sometimes the wishing well might give them what they've asked for. But other times it might be a bit malicious and it might give them the opposite of what they've asked for. Maybe if they're wishing for love, an enemy might just turn up, you know, so a little bit of a risk associated with the wishing well, but how perfect for this garden. I feel like it's so good for what we're going for here. I found this gorgeous arch. So the little meandering path, it goes around, it goes under the arch. The sims can make a wish in the wishing well if they're feeling brave, and then it kind of squiggles round to this other fun space at the back. I tried to include a few skill building items and activities out here for sims to do. We've got a telescope in case your sims want to die. That was really dark, I'm so sorry. In case their time has come to pass on to the other side. I really wanted to get this nice curve in the path. I don't know why this was so challenging. I found it really challenging. It took me several attempts, and in the end I had to do it in 2 stages, but I'm really pleased with the curve we got here with the squiggly path. I was just trying to go for really organic shapes with it, really. That's what I was going for. I put down this little tree stump. Rabbits can actually live there, so you can get rabbits on your lot, and then just kind of intermingling that with more flowers. I don't think you can have too many flowers with something like this, can you? I hope not. I really hope not. What I was trying to do was create an almost kaleidoscope effect with the plants. I don't know if that's going to make sense. It made sense in my head. But when you go around to the left where we started, the plants are mostly in that lovely blue color we spoke about, with just a little bit of purple dotted in. And then when you go around the back, they become more purple and slightly less blue. And then when you get round to the lake, there's also a little bit of pink intermingled to kind of match those lily pad flowers down there in the pond. So my idea was that it would kind of evolve as you walk around the house, giving all these different colors. Maybe each color gives a different spell or something like that. Of course, that's not going to happen in your actual gameplay, unfortunately. But I think a lot of building in The Sims is using our imagination. Speaking of imagination, you'll see those little blue flowers that are around that tree. Those are alien flowers, so they don't actually have a stem. They're just flower heads and they kind of float. And I thought, oh, maybe this is the spell that is affecting these trees and making them grow so tall and lanky. So I placed them around each of the trees as part of the storytelling and the lore to do with this entire lot. Let me know what you think of that. Do you like that idea? I was trying to come up with a name for our fairy sim. I don't know if any of you play The Sims in this way, but I like to build their house first before I fully form their personality, which I think is quite unusual, and it's definitely not the way the game kind of encourages you to play when you go in. You're supposed to create the family first. But I just feel like I know them so much better once I build their house. I have a rough idea of maybe how many Sims live there and what their relationships are to each other and what the general storyline is, how they all interconnect. But I feel like the finer details I only establish when I'm building their house. And then at the end, when I've done the house, I'll go back in and I'll build my family and cast, the ones who are actually going to live there. Does anyone else play in this way? Or do you find it's easier to create your Sims first and then build the house once you've established their personalities and their preferences? Let me know. I'll be honest, this is one of my favorite parts. And I have a feeling that some people are going to hate this, but we have these mushroom stools that you can sit on and they function just like a chair, really. But I thought, how funny would it be if I tried to create a little mushroom patch where our fairy sim can sit out of an afternoon and just chill, have some nice time in amongst nature. She could drink some tea. I put one of those little gnomes that are like this with some drinks on. This is a really good point, actually. I know our fairy sims are not going to have a hunger need, but can they still drink? I don't know. I guess we'll find out, because that might change a lot of my build. I might have to go in and make some adjustments once I've played with the pack if that's the case. I have a lot of drink things going on. Anyway, back to this. I put down some of that alien landscape. You'll see I've got it dotted around in a few places. I put some more of that alien landscape down here and tried to blend it in with some of those alien mushrooms. Let me know, do you think it works? Do you think it's just silly? I'd be so interested to hear. I don't know, it's very me. I like the whimsy of it, I suppose. I just had a wonderful time imagining all the things that a devious fairy might do to unwind. I found that so funny. Everyone needs something to do to recharge, right? Everyone's got their hobbies or their thing, even if you're a dark and malicious fairy. So maybe her thing is just chilling in the mushroom patch. Anyway, moving on, this gave me the idea to add more gnomes around the garden, because gnomes seem like they're going to be a very big thing in the new Enchanted by Nature pack. When I saw the trailer, you can't miss the giant gnome sculpture right in the middle of one of the neighborhoods. And it seems like there's going to be a lot of new Sims lore attached to the gnomes. So I had the idea that maybe the fairies and the gnomes, they kind of work together. And so she's got a lot of little gnomes dotted around, maybe as a homage to some of her gnome friends. Anyway, finally, we're going in and we're starting to work on the inside of the build. I know it's taken a while to get here, but I did feel that getting the outside right was going to be integral to the success of this build. So what I'm starting with is, like we spoke about earlier, I wanted to add platforms to kind of give the idea of this higgledy-piggledy crooked house. So I did that mostly in this back right corner. Just tried to make them seem kind of random and overlapping to create these little cozy spaces, each of them having their own designated activity or mood or vibe. I just love that. I think that's so much fun. I did toy with the idea of adding those trellises from high school years where teenagers can sneak out and they can climb down the trellis. I did toy with the idea of using them instead of the ladders in this cottage, because I love the idea that even the ladders, like this really functional item to get from one level to the other, was enchanted by nature. But I couldn't quite get it to work. I've never really played with the trellises before, and I'm not quite sure what you need to do to make them functional. When I got a sim in here, I just could not get her to climb up and down the ladders. Do you think it would be possible? Am I missing something? Are they not really designed to be used in that way? Or is it just maybe something that I'm not understanding? As someone who hasn't really used them much before, let me know. Here I'm just trying to figure out some more of the floor plan. We've got a little dining area right by the fire. I thought that was so cozy. This top level, I thought this would kind of be her executive area. This kind of almost boss babe area. I thought that was so funny that she can sit back here and survey her land when she's behind her little desk. I did give her one of those typewriter computers. I don't know if a fairy really has any need for a typewriter or a computer, but I think they're so useful for gameplay. I think it's always nice to have one as an option, even if it seems kind of off-brand for a fairy. And then I put the kitchen at the front because going along with my idea that this fairy maybe tries to tempt other Sims up to the house so she can suck their life force, I thought it'd be good to have the kitchen at the front so she could just throw open the window and all the delicious smells will go out into the forest, and any unsuspecting Sim just out for a walk would be unable to resist and would be enticed up to the cottage. Again, I don't think this is really going to happen, but we can pretend, we can use our imagination. The kitchen basically ends up mostly like this. I try and add a few nice little clutter items. Fairies, of course, they don't really need a kitchen because they don't have a hunger need, but I think for the story we're trying to tell here, it kind of makes sense. It's not a huge kitchen, but it's just enough to get the job done, I think. I put a nice crusty loaf right by the window to give off those vibes. She's got some candy in jars in case her victims have more of a sweet tooth. You'll see we do have a little bit of clipping, if you'll notice there, with the wisteria. I do go back in and I try my best to disguise that because I didn't want to lose it on the front. I thought it looked so good. So we'll go back in later and we'll try and figure out how can we make this seem a bit more intentional. And then I found this little spellcaster book in debug, and I thought how hilarious would it be if we pretended that this book was maybe her recipe, her human recipe book, where she writes down things that are most successful and uses them again later, maybe perfecting her recipes, those kind of things. So I just placed that on the fridge so she's always got it to hand if she needs it. And then obviously we also had to have lots of flowers in the kitchen because I think we've established that's what we're going for at this point. It would be weird not to. And I kind of cracked myself up doing this. I don't know if anyone else's mum did the same thing in like the early 2000s, but I remember the Tuscan vibes were really in at that point and everything was kind of terracotta and viney, leafy. My mum, and lots of my friends' mums actually, now that I think about it, along the top of their cupboards in the kitchen, they would place lots of flowers or like vines, things hanging down, that sort of thing. And it just brought back this really cute memory of my mum. It was around the same time that all the mums were adding shells to everything. Like the seaside vibe in the bathroom was really big in, and they were just attaching shells to absolutely everything. It's like they wanted to pretend that they were constantly on holiday in Italy or something. I think that's what they were going for. And you'll see a little later on, I used that wallpaper. This might be a controversial choice, but we have a wallpaper which has the vines hanging down so that it's not actual vines, it's just on the wallpaper. I was like, is that tacky? I don't know, but again, it just kind of, it spoke to my mum how she got her little stencils and she was stenciling vines everywhere during that period, and I was like, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep with the theme, you know. So I used this wallpaper and then I added some actual wall plants as well to try and make it seem a bit like it blended in. You'll see that a little bit later on, and let me know what you think. Does it work? Is it tacky? I don't know. I just thought it was so funny. I was like, this is Y2K. This is the noughties all over again, but in more of a cottagecore setting. So yeah, this is a little nod to my mum and all the mums around that time. I also put down a few little pots on the shelves, like maybe these are her secret ingredients. We just won't ask too many questions about what those are. And then I also tried to create separate spaces within the larger space with wallpaper. So I've got two different types of wallpaper going on to kind of create the impression of smaller areas within the larger space. I think that works really well just in real life as well, but it does work well for The Sims as well when you're trying to separate off spaces and create a cozier vibe within a larger room. And oh my god, this was one of my favorite things that I did. So it's such a small thing, but I just love the storytelling of it. I sized down those blue and white curtains and I put them over the two little windows that I thought maybe could be the eyes of the house. And I just loved the idea of the fairy in her tiny form flying up there and doing some curtain twitching, peeking out to see if there's any unsuspecting victims outside that she can suck the emotions from. I just thought that was such a cute little idea. Like she's almost like this, a bit of a nosy neighbor, like, oh, what's going on out there? So I placed those two curtains up there and I just thought they worked really well. I did leave the lower windows free of curtains. I just couldn't find any that I thought really worked well. So I just decided that she didn't need curtains down there. And now we're beginning the process of what was perhaps the hardest area for me of this entire build. The living room. I decided this area off to the left as we're looking at it now of the kitchen would be the living room essentially. And at first I thought I'd do a conventional living room setup. So there'd be maybe an armchair and a love seat, maybe even a television, but it just turned out that there wasn't really space for them. I do end up changing that idea as we go through. You'll see a little bit later on. Right now I've just moved on because I just could not get it right in the living area. So I thought, you know what, abandon this for now. We'll come back to it later. We'll let it stew. I don't know if you ever do this, but sometimes it's helpful for me to just kind of let it churn away in the back of my mind while I'm working on something else, and then we'll come back to it later. So right now I'm trying to work out how to do these platforms, how to get them to stand out but also blend in. That's what I was going for. I wanted it to look incorporated, but I also wanted to make sure that you could see there were platforms. And in the end, I went for this really nice rustic wood floor. I just love this floor for this. It's so natural. It's so organic looking. I think it works really well. And there you can see the vine wallpaper that I was mentioning earlier. Let me know what you think about that. I'd love to hear your comments. And now I'm just faffing really. I'm just faffing more with the living room, trying to get it how I wanted, trying to get it how it feels right. In the end, I do change this because I hated the idea that you would open the front door and kind of walk straight into a chair. You could have had it like this. I think it would have been fine. There's definitely enough space for the Sims to get around. But I didn't like the idea of that opening the front door and then you're walking straight into a love seat. It just didn't seem like it had good flow. So here I'm faffing around trying to get a rug that matches the chair to match the rug. And what I end up doing is actually placing two cozy armchairs against this lovely vine wall I've got going on here and facing them into the room and creating this nice little cozy space here. I put a little radio between them so she can listen to music. I don't know, what kind of music do you think she'd be into? That would be an interesting thought. What music does this dark fairy like? Now moving on to the second platform, I am almost embarrassed to admit that I purchased the book nook kit almost exclusively for this space. Now, I have been wanting to purchase the book nook kit for a while. I think it looks really, really good, but I've been holding off because I'll be honest, you just can't buy them all at once. At least I can't. You just can't buy them all at once. It's too much, so I have to do it in stages. But since I've been wanting it for a while, and since I think this is the perfect space for it, I decided now's the time, gonna invest in the book nook kit because I wanted them all along the top like that. I just love the idea of the fairies floating up there and picking out their books and then bringing them back down to read in this nice chair swing thing we've got here. This swing is so perfect. It's covered in lights already. It's just gorgeous. I love this. And then I mimicked the cute little curtains that I put on the eye windows here. So it kind of just brings it all together nicely. That's what I was going for. And then you'll see me trying to disguise the clipping branch, shall we call it. And what I thought would be a lovely piece of storytelling, assuming our fairies can drink liquids, is maybe at the end of the day, she likes to retire here, choose a book, pour herself a glass of wine and sit in a lovely swing. It's just such a nice idea. I love that idea. If this was my house, I would spend so much time in this little nook. I think it's so cute. And the wine racks were perfect because you can stack them and they go to just the right height. So I put the wine racks underneath this clipping wisteria. And then I also placed one of those table garlands, those blue table garlands that we have on top of the cabinets in the kitchen. My hope was that that would tie it together and make it look a bit intentional. Let me know what you think. I know the wisteria is still a little bit bigger than the wine rack, but I think that kind of fits with this idea that nature is just uncontainable. It just goes where it pleases in this house. So that's what I was thinking, and I quite like it. I really, really like this space. One thing I think that is super fun, both in The Sims and in real life, is trying to separate areas using lighting, different tones of lighting, different types of lighting. So here I'm just going in and I'm trying to do that a little bit. I'm trying to see what lighting might work to create different vibes in different areas. And you know what? This hanging plant, I keep trying to put it in places downstairs and I just could not find anywhere that I wanted to put it. I do find a place for it upstairs. So I was really, really pleased about that because I wanted to use it. You can't have too much fire around a fireplace, right? So I decided to put candles along that little shelf in front of the fireplace, the mantelpiece, I think we'd call it. The trouble I was having is, I don't know if you can see, but on the very last set of candles that I placed down, when I put the fireplace back, it disappears. I have no idea why it does that. But the way I got around it in the end was to just have the last set of candles slot to where it's meant to on the fireplace and then just alt place the other ones around it. That's the only way I could do it. And it's not perfect, but I think that's good for a build like this. It's a little bit higgledy-piggledy and random, so it kind of ties in. I love when you get a blessing in disguise like that. I think that's so good. I did find some lovely fairy lights. I do love these string fairy lights that we can place almost anywhere. I think they are so perfect for a build like this. Of course the fairy would have fairy lights. I managed to find a spot for them in the kitchen, as you'll see, going from that kind of archway I created to the wall. Really love that. And then I also found a spot for them in the office area as well. I did change out the flowers on top of the cupboards a few times. I started with these blue table garlands, I suppose you would call them. I then exchanged them for these hanging plants, and I did like them. I thought they fit really, really nicely. But you know, I was imagining trying to live in this kitchen, and I just couldn't imagine every time you open your cupboard, all of those leaves go in. You gotta fight through them trying to find whatever it is, your plate or your teacup or whatever it is you're looking for. And then when you close it, all the vines, all the flowers get stuck in there, and you'd have to try and scoop them out every time. I think it'd be an absolute nightmare. So I leave that for a little bit, and then I do eventually go back and I change it because it was bothering me. I mean, it's not going to make any difference to your sim, especially a fairy sim. Let's be honest, she could just change it if she wanted. But no, I just couldn't stand it. So I did put it on top of the fireplace because, you know, why not? But I change it back to the garlands in the end. Now, I know what you're thinking. There are not enough plants in this build. I know. So I decided I was going to actually place some on the lower platform because there's not really enough space to have any kind of activity or skill building object. But I didn't want to just leave it bare. I didn't want anything in this house to be bare if I could help it. So I used some more of these hanging blue plants that I put on the fireplace on the higher platform going down to the lower platform. It did cause me some issues, I will be honest, because they want to slot to the wall rather than the platform. That's just what they were designed to do. It took me a few attempts to get it right, but in the end, I really think it came out well. I think it's a nice little feature. Let me know. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Is it just too much? I don't know. And then one of our final downstairs touches, I put a little coffee table in the living space, and I put a cup of tea on the coffee table because I was thinking, okay, she's trying to entice unwitting Sims to her house. This house is based on England. I think it's meant to be Cornwall or something like that. I'm English. I know exactly what's going to entice English people to this house. It's a nice cup of tea as soon as you walk in. So for that reason, I put a cup of tea on the little coffee table. It's one of the first things that you'll see when you go in. I just thought that was so funny and a little nod to the area as well. Now we're moving upstairs, and I had this vision in my head of what I wanted to do. I almost wanted there to be a little balcony area looking out over the ground floor because I love the idea of her up there surveying her territory, seeing if anyone's coming in, looking out that big window out the front, seeing if she can see anyone out in the world. So I really wanted it to be open, but the trouble is when I put the walls going right to the window, the space was a bit too small for that nice big window and it just didn't look right. So that's why I decided on the balcony idea. But the problem with that was as soon as I put the fences in, the game didn't recognize it as a room anymore. So when you put the roofs on, the roofs were going into the room. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was a real problem when I was building this space, and you can see I've abandoned it for a minute. I'm moving on to the bathroom because I can't quite think how I'm gonna do it. I made this bathroom a little bit darker in color than some of the other areas because I wanted to give this rich, luxurious impression. As we spoke about earlier, the fairy sims, my understanding is they're not going to have a bladder need, so she doesn't really need a toilet, but I thought I'd include one anyway because the last thing she wants is when she's sucking the emotions from one of her victims is for them to want to leave because they need the bathroom. So I did include a toilet so that they could go up there and relieve themselves and be her unwilling victim a little bit longer. But I don't think the fairy sim is going to need it herself. In fact, my favorite thing about this bathroom is the bathtub. I just think it's so gorgeous. It's from the Get Famous pack, and it's quite extra. It's a fancy bathtub. But in this particular swatch, I just thought it was so beautiful. It's got the swan as the tap head, so it's a little nod to the nature, those beautiful wings, the swan wings kind of tying into the fairy wings. Then we got a little sink, and as I mentioned, the little toilet as well. So now I'm just going back and I'm trying again with this room. I'm determined at this point that I'm gonna somehow get something close to what I want. And that's when I remembered the new patch update. I told you it was coming. I told you I found a place for the wallpaper windows. This is where I use it because I couldn't work out how to do it with a half wall or a fence. So I decided it was going to have to stay a full wall. But with the wallpaper windows, they can see out. All that lovely light comes in from that front window. It just adds a little extra light in that corner, which I think is a really nice touch. So you see now, I'm placing down the glass windows for the first time. And I just think they're really lovely. I chose one that has this really intricate decorative design. I just thought she's gonna love that. That's perfect for her. And what I decided to do in this upstairs room was really, again, lean into a slightly darker color scheme, make it really luxurious and cozy. Controversial decision, I did give her a bunk bed. I don't know what you think of that because I know it seems a bit childish, but it lent itself to this multi-layered, laddered, higgledy-piggledy idea that I was going with. So I gave her a bunk bed and I personally really like it. I think it's so good. She can see out of her front window from her bed and I think it's great. It's not huge up here, so it does give us a little bit more floor space to work with as well, just practically. So I did like that. Also, this is where I found a spot for those hanging plants I love so much. This is where they're allowed to shine. I wanted this to feel so luxurious and so nice. So I put lots of curtains, almost like a canopy bed. That's what I was kind of trying to channel. That's the energy I was going for here. And then I gave her this little dresser with all her favorite things. She's got some little perfumes, some little makeups on her dresser. Now that dresser, that is functional, so she can use that to change her outfits if she wants to. She can also use the mirror if she wants to. So there's a lot of things that she can do with this dresser in this little space. I also gave her a rocking chair. How adorable. I just love the thought of her just chilling there, looking out the front window, looking out her double windows. I also obviously included more plants because why not at this point? And then I'm moving on to perhaps what were some of the most difficult spaces to decorate in the whole house. The turret areas. They are so small and they are such a funny shape. But as I say, I didn't want to leave them blank. This top floor turret, this cracked me up. I imagined that some of her fairy friends were like, girl, you just need to find a way to relax. You need to take up meditation or something. So reluctantly, she brought a little meditation cushion up to the top turret. She put some starry night sky lights up here, maybe used some fairy magic to channel the night sky. She put some of her favorite blue plants because she does find those relaxing. She does like those. And then she's also got one of those little gramophones as well, so she can listen to some chill music if she wants to, or maybe some relaxing affirmations. And I thought maybe this was a way for her to attempt to appease her fairy friends who are like, my goodness, you just need to rein it in from time to time. For your own good, for your own sanity, find a way to relax. But I imagine she doesn't actually go up here that often. I thought, how funny would it be to put some cobwebs or something like that to show that she doesn't actually use the room that much. It's more just to appease her friends. But I personally loved that space as a little meditation room. I thought it was so good. It must be so peaceful up there. You're up there with the birds and the starry sky. And I really liked the idea. So I couldn't quite bring myself to put the cobwebs. But as a storytelling element, I thought that was really fun. And then in this lower turret, I thought, what would I do with it? If it were my space, what would I do with it? And I decided I would probably use it as a little overflow dressing area. So I tried a few things. I put this little dresser in there, but even something small like that, it just felt so big and clunky in this little room. So I do end up getting rid of that eventually, even though I do like the vibes of it. I think it looks great. And what I end up doing instead is putting down one of those window box seats, I suppose you would call them. They just fit so well in that space. I suppose that's what they were intended for, is a space just like this. So I put that down, and then a little later on you'll see I find a couple of bits and pieces from the Crystal Creations kit. There's a few jewelry box looking things, and I was able to use move objects and the up and down keys, which are 9 and 0, to place the jewelry items on the bench. Like she's just kind of left them there. Maybe she likes looking at them, or maybe she just didn't tidy them away last time she was getting ready for a day out. I do see her as maybe a little bit chaotic, all over the place. So I think she would leave things out and about sometimes. So we've got those couple of jewelry boxes. And then I also, rather than the big dresser, I used just some hanging rails. Because she's got her dresser. I think for the most part, she would just put her clothes in there because she's a fairy. She doesn't need to iron. She would just get them out and they'd be perfect. So she doesn't really need too much hanging space. She's just really using it for her favorite items. Maybe some things that she likes to look at or some things that are particularly special to her. And of course, they're all black. Those are her vibes. I do see this fairy wearing a lot of black, as well as maybe some blue and purple highlights to go with her house. And yeah, now we're almost done. I'm just doing some terrain paint. I don't know about you, but I think it's always helpful to line your paths with a little bit of dirt. That's just something I do. I think it makes it look more integrated and a bit more natural and a bit more kind of worn. I put a little bit under the plants as well to kind of make them look a bit more natural and blended in. And I think we are nearly done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick tour of the whole house now, just so you can see everything. So I know sometimes with the speed builds, it can kind of be hard to focus on anything when the camera's jumping around. So this is the house from afar. I am so pleased with it. It's honestly one of my favorite things that I've ever built in this game. I think it's beautiful. But also I love the sinister elements as well. I love the vibes of this house. You can go around to the left as we spoke about. There's that little mushroom patch where you can drink some tea, the little gnome serving it to you. I did hide a trash can around the corner. I always forget about the trash can. I tried to conceal it as best I could. Even fairies have trash, I suppose. There's a little bench there where she can relax. There's the picnic table with the picnic baskets ready to lure in an unwitting sim. You go under the arch, you get to the wishing well, you can make a wish if you dare, and then go around the back here. This is such a nice area. This is just a perfect hangout zone where you can just chill by the fire, you can play some music, you can look through the telescope, you can admire the wisteria on the chimney if you're me. I also put a wind chime. I thought maybe that might be relaxing to this sim, or maybe it'll just annoy her more, I'm not sure. But then you keep going around and you get to the lake where you can play, splash, catch frogs, anything you might want to do. I did put a little log bench around there, around the back. I don't know if you caught it, but you can sit out there if you want to and just admire the view, because it is a beautiful lot, truly. It's gorgeous. And then if you go around the other way, I put down an easel because I thought, oh my goodness, what a gorgeous painting spot. Moving on to the inside, you go through the front door, you got the kitchen on the left, you got the little living nook, I suppose, on the right. Go a little bit further, you got the lovely dining room by the warm fire. So cozy, so cottagey. Up the first platform, and then you have the option of going upstairs if you want to, or you can go to the right and you can go into that wine and reading nook, perhaps my personal favorite spot of the whole house. And then you can go up again to the executive boss babe area if you so desire. And then you go up again to the second floor and you get to the bedroom. Now, I was a little bit worried about how I was going to decorate this at first because I wasn't sure how I was going to fit everything in. It is a tight space, but I think it actually worked out quite well. I'm really pleased with it. I think it's got slightly different energy to what downstairs is giving, because downstairs is kind of still trying to entice the Sims in. When you get up here, this is her domain. So I think this is very, very her. Those darker, luxurious colors I think are so perfect. Going through to the dressing room with her little jewelry box, all her treasures. She's got a mirror in there. I did end up placing a few more windows because I think the symmetry is necessary in this space, even though those back windows do not have much of a view. But this is where she keeps maybe her more precious, special things. And then up it again one more time, we get to her meditation zone, possibly the most unutilized area of the house, but still I think a really good use of space for when she really, really needs it. If you like this Dark Fairy Cottage and you want to play in it, I have uploaded it to the gallery. It's just called Dark Fairy Cottage. You can search for it. If you do play in it, let me know. I would love to know how you get on.